There are things I can't force. I must adjust. There are times when the greatest change needed is a change of viewpoint.
It's a can of tomatoes. You might have something like this on a shelf in your kitchen. This is an old shovel handle. You can see it's broken off and it can't be used for a shovel handle anymore. Most of us, when we're confronted by objects like these, declare that they have no value. And we put them in a big pile along with a bunch of other stuff that other people said have no value. We walk away. We call those piles landfills. In their groundbreaking book, Cradle to Cradle, architect William McDonough and engineer Michael Braungart identified a method of thinking that assumes that we take materials out of or off of the ground, make them into objects, use the objects, and then discard them. They called that kind of thinking cradle to grave thinking. It's a very dangerous kind of thinking, and it's actually a very new kind of thinking, really. It wasn't until after World War II in America that we began to really think about ourselves primarily as consumers, to identify ourselves by what we buy, and to try to solve problems with purchasing. So when confronted by something like a broken shovel handle, we would say, I need to go buy a new shovel handle, or maybe I need to go buy a whole new shovel. We need to change our relationship to waste. Obviously, we all create a lot of waste. We'll buy a cup of coffee or a can of tomatoes. We'll use the contents and discard the container. We've built value structures that dictate that a used empty container has no value. Now, you might be saying, well, but that can is steel, right? And steel is recyclable, right? So surely that's okay. And we'll put it in the recycling bin, and that'll be kind of the end of our experience with it. If pressed, we might be able to work out that someone takes it somewhere and somehow makes it into something else. But for most of us, our understanding of and relationship to recycling is pretty abstract. It actually takes a lot of energy to recycle steel. And there's only 2 major sites on the globe for steel recycling. One's in Turkey and one's in China. So if you're not there, you're shipping your steel there to get it recycled. Some models indicate global shipping can account for as much as 10% of annual greenhouse gas emission by the year 2050. A little can has a pretty big footprint. We need to change our way of thinking. We need to embrace what McDonough and Braungart described as cradle to cradle thinking. That is, we need to design our objects and our garments and our spaces in such a way that their usage and maybe even their form can shift to propose new usages. We need to rethink our role in the waste stream. We need to train ourselves to reposition ourselves with regards to the things that we bring into our lives. Now, one way into that is to stop thinking about these as disconnected individual objects, and instead to understand them for what they are, interconnected points in the vast web of the constructed environment that we all inhabit. If we can do that, if we can look for points of overlap and intersection, then whole vast new landscapes open up for us. Landscapes of possibility, not just recycling possibility, but landscapes of immense creative possibility. Individually, this can and this shovel handle can't do much. It's just a can, after all, and a shovel handle. But if we think creatively about ways that they can intersect these previously valueless objects, take on a whole new identity as highly valuable components in a new usage. One way that we can explore and uncover new usages is to look to those who have come before us, to look to their actions and their habits. This isn't about nostalgia. This is about histories. A really good place to start is the demise of passenger rail travel in America. Until after World War II, travel in America, when we undertook it, was largely a community affair, as it still is in many parts of the world. The primary methods of travel were buses and boats, and much more commonly, trains. I bring this up because the demise of passenger rail travel in the United States indicates a very important shift in our cultural value system. With the rise after World War II of individual automobile ownership and the corresponding migration of the middle class from urban centers to suburban living, where they lived alone in a detached structure away from their neighbors. Travel went from being a collective event to be experienced with strangers to being an increasingly individual and individualized event. As a culture, we came to privilege individual convenience over collective experience. And we set up a series of cultural value systems that reflect that. Trains were so ubiquitous and accessible in our lives here in the first half of the 20th century that they were inextricably woven into the fabric of our lives, not just our physical lives, but also our poems and our songs, our stories. Trains could be symbols of escape, of freedom, of departure, but also of arrival. Trains could bring news or return a long-lost loved one. Images of trains in American popular culture were images of aspiration, but also resignation, of triumph, of longing. I love to sing old train songs because they remind me of a way of thinking about our experience in our shared journey as humans that is collective, not individual. In the same way, I've just made a little instrument out of discarded bits of trash. I'm going to sing you a little song that I've made up out of bits and pieces of train songs that I've learned that I love to sing. The repetitive nature of this song makes it a great one to play on this instrument, and it goes like this. Train, train, take me on down this track. Train, train, take me on down the track. Don't know where I'm going, but I know I'm coming back. Well, that's what I make with trash. What are you going to make?